there was something about multifamily that I felt I was more drawn to with the creative side of things. Storage is phenomenal investment. It's a bunch of garages, right?
Yeah.
Where multifamily, you're talking, even with single family, even more so, you're talking about somebody's home.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have the opportunity to create an experience and a vibe and something special.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was really drawn to multifamily because of that.
Welcome to another episode of Break Away from the Rat Race, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Mikey Taylor. Mikey is a serial entrepreneur. He first found success with nearly 2 decades of professional skateboarding. Throughout his career, Mikey held lucrative sponsorship contracts with DC Shoe, GoPro, Alien Workshop, and during these successes, Mikey was already thinking about life after skateboarding. He co-founded Saint Archer Brewing Company, which was later acquired by Miller Coors Company. And Mikey co-founded Sovrn Skateboards and Avni Intelligence, which is an entrepreneur education platform and podcast. And Mikey is the current president and managing principal of Commune Capital, a private equity real estate investment firm. Mikey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And today I also had the pleasure of having Josh Schmidt with FlipSystem, and I have Antoine, of course, my co-host and business partner, and all that good stuff. So, Mikey, again, welcome to the show. So, tell us a little bit about kind of like your career. I would say as a skateboarder. I think we talked earlier about kind of like being like how professional athletes are kind of thinking differently. You have to be self-disciplined. You have to be self-reliant and all that good stuff. So, let's talk about that and how people that are listening can kind of incorporate that in their lifestyle so that they can go to the next level.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying the thing that brought me success, there's challenges with this as well. We'll unpack that. But I'm an obsessive personality. Like anything I get into, I get all the way into it. There's no like middle ground for me. Even since I was young, it was always kind of nuke or nothing. Mm-hmm. And so skateboarding was one of those things that like I got into it. I got completely into it. And it was so difficult that I couldn't master it. And that was why skateboarding lasted so long for me, where I would get into things as a kid, feel like I kind of hit the ceiling and then lost interest. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, I have to have challenge to keep my interest.
Yeah.
And skateboarding, I just tried it for like 30 years, every single day. I just couldn't master it. So I was like obsessed with trying to get to the top.
Yeah.
And the top was unachievable. Mm-hmm. And that's why it just, I think, drove me into doing it so long.
Yeah.
Now the challenge being with that personality is there's more to life than one singular thing. And, when, dating and then marriage and then kids came into the picture, that brought out a whole new type of challenge.
Yeah. So dating, you're all in also and stuff like that? So.
No, so that's my next problem. For me, I'm all in on one thing. I cannot be all in on multiple.
Okay.
This is it.
Okay.
And so, when I started dating who's my current wife now, skateboarding was number one. And if it was like up here, she was like a far distant second.
Oh, really? Wow.
And that was tough. That took us years of trying to figure out, how to responsibly do that.
Yeah. So there's a fine line between focus and obsession. So which part are you on? I know the answer to that thing. I have a feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely trending towards obsession. Look, I'm getting better at it's been years of me learning how to manage it correctly, but it's obsession. When I'm obsessed with something, that's when the focus comes in, and that's where it becomes very kind of tunnel-like.
So that must have been difficult then, because I think part of my intro and what I had read about you was that it's like, but you were completely absorbed by skateboarding, but then you were still kind of thinking that one day this dream is gonna end, and I'm gonna have to do something real or something. So you were already thinking about, okay, well, what's the next step? Like, what am I gonna do? So that must be challenging.
Okay, so you're right, but I wasn't 19 years old going, I need to build this master plan now.
Yeah.
And by 25, I'm going to have a business. And by 30, I'm going to have kids. It wasn't like that. I was just so scared of what life after skateboarding was going to look like that fear just drove action out of me. Mm-hmm. I had great guidance, but where the obsession all came to one was my plan as a kid was live off a fraction of what I was making, so that I could basically maximize all of the dollars I had into assets, right? Into investing. Yeah. Now, the discipline aspect of that fit into the skateboarding side of discipline. Yeah. Like I was okay with, my focus is skateboarding. I want to do this 24/7. If that means, financially I live off basically top ramen, or I'm just eating fast food, I'm just skating 24/7, then fine. Yeah. I could do that. Now, what I was investing in, it wasn't me at that time. Mm-hmm. I had somebody come in and was helping me invest. Okay. So it was starting with the behavioral side, him helping me build out a plan, and then me focusing on skateboarding. Mm-hmm. Wow. It wasn't until I started wanting to get more into the business side of skateboarding where I started then getting more involved in what we were investing in. That took years to get to.
Okay. And I think too, I grew up skateboarding as well. From me too. 12 years old all the way up to, 18, 19.
I tried it, I fell, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
But it's it's very much that same mentality. It's I'm not going home until I land this. Right. I'm not it's all that obsessive. I my ankles on. Yeah, exactly. It's very, very obsessive. And you don't care. You don't care about your girlfriend. You don't care about your parents. Right. It's all just how much time can I skateboard every single day? Right. No matter how much money it makes me. And then I remember the kids growing up who had a little sponsor here or whatever. We're you hit the jackpot. Yeah, you did. You got free Nikes. So it's crazy. And maybe that's part of the reason too, that you have that obsession.
It is. And I would say the follow on is I'm a routine person. I really like routine. So with skateboarding, it was really, easy to get into the system. Yeah. Wake up, I'd go skate in the garage before school. Then go to school. We'd have our lunch break. We'd go skate, get out of school, homework, skate. It was just every day was the same. And I'm totally good with Groundhog's Day. Yeah. And then when I got a little bit older and I started traveling, the budget side of it felt the same. It was, this is my routine. This is what I live on. I control my lifestyle. Let's see how disciplined I am. And almost just gamified it.
Yeah, and I think that's why, a lot of professional athletes and, even not necessarily professional, but athletes, people that are doing a lot of sports at a higher level and they're competing with other people or themselves, that you have to have the discipline and that thing. I think this is something that's very, and the routine is part of that, because you get up, you kind of like a robot and say, okay, well, I wake up, you go to the gym. That's just what you do. You don't question it. Right. This is the routine. I don't question it. And then ideally your whole family is on board and say, and then if you don't get up at 6 to go in the gym, say, hey, aren't you supposed to go to the gym?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, having that accountability.
With sports, there's certain people that have more talent than others, but it's not the talent that makes somebody a professional. Yeah. It really just comes down to the person being willing to do more than the person next to them. Yeah. Exactly. That's really it. Yeah. And when you're talking about, I get up at, say, 4:30 every single morning, and the mornings I do not feel like doing it, I still do it. And it's all those little things is where the separation is created.
That's right.
Yeah. And then you talk to pro athletes and they all sound the same. They're all obsessive and disciplined, and there's a model to it.
Yeah. It's funny. Before you came, we were talking about this. Well, 'cause I have a huge sports background too, and played professional volleyball overseas in Europe. But we're talking about the concept of winning. It's exactly what you just said, of that desire, kind of, you have that thing in your brain as well, where you're willing to endure that pain when you wake up at 4:30 for months in a row, and you have that day where, God, do I really have to do this? Why am I doing this? Right? My body is killing me. Yeah. I've had surgery here, surgery there, I've done all this stuff, right? All the injuries I'm sure you have gone through skateboarding as well, right? But I think the most successful athletes a lot of times aren't the most physically gifted ones. It's the ones who are mentally, in that situation or in that position mentally, where they know what it takes to win and they can push themselves way more than the person next to you, right? I mean, look at Kobe. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's what he always said.
Mama mentality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, at one point, so you were focused on skateboarding. Then it sounded like you had kind of like a manager, that was kind of like mentor manager. Is that right? That was kind of like focusing on setting up other things for you after the fact, right?
Yeah, he was probably a 1 in 3. He was a business manager, a financial advisor, and a mentor.
Okay.
Would probably be the 3 things that he offered me.
Yeah.
And the mentor part was probably the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of like financial advisors that was just like, oh yeah, give me your money, and they're investing it and they're rebalancing and you have no clue what's going on.
That's right. Yeah.
Thankfully for me, he spent time educating me, and like one of the first times I got with him, I was like 19 years old, and he looks at me and goes, "So when do you want to retire?" I was like, "I don't know, like when my career ends."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, when is that?" It's like, "I don't know, 5-10 years." Okay, well if it's year 10, what are we living off of? And he started walking me through this process of what financial freedom actually was, which I had no clue.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, if I think at that time I was making like, I don't know, $2,000 a month, right? Nothing. I was like, Randy, we could figure this out. Like I could retire like definitely in 5 years. Right. But no, but even like having somebody go, do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? And getting to a future idea of what my expenses potentially would look like. And then what I realistically needed to have invested to get to that number, considering all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? What if we hit like we're in right now, and inflation is running rampant, and all of a sudden, we're yield starved, and none of these things that were happening 10 years ago are at play.
Yeah.
How do we solve for that? And just having that at a young age was huge. Like having somebody test me and go, when do you want to retire?
Yeah.
I don't know. I had no clue.
Yeah. And then after, so when did you basically had the DC shoe kind of deal and stuff like that. So that was kind of like the part of the skateboarding. I say but then you invested in or co-founded like Saint Archer. So how did that come about?
And was that the first thing after skateboarding? Like the first realm
it was
of business?
Towards the tail end of skateboarding.
Oh, okay.
So my whole plan originally, like when I sat with Randy was his name, when I was 19, it was, okay, I need to have a 10-year career, and I'm going to live like I'm broke for 10 years. And we're going to get as much invested in, there was a split, but I wanted growth because I was young, but I wanted cash flow because I wanted to take control from the sponsors or my employer.
Yeah.
And that was the plan. And if I didn't get to financial freedom, the hope was I would have enough coming in from the side that would help me transition into the next thing. That was our original plan.
Yeah.
Well, I end up getting my first shoe on a shoe company called DVS.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
DVS.
So
I used to have a lot of those.
So I'm writing for the shoe company. They tell me I'm going to have my own shoe. And all of the sudden I was introduced to product development and working with designers and, sitting in meetings, trying to design a shoe. And once we had a design, then all of a sudden I'm working with the sales team and the marketing team and figuring out how you got this product to basically get picked up and sold through.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that process. And then when my shoe basically came out, I really started looking at let's call it my brand differently.
Yeah.
Now I was looking at it through the lens of like, how do I resonate with more kids so I could sell more shoes? And with that, it was like a drug for me. It was like, oh my gosh, I want more of this. And basically I came up with this idea that I could be more than a skateboarder for DVS. I wanted to be, I didn't really know what it was, but I set up a meeting with the president, and his name was Tim. I was like, Tim, I know I'm good at skateboarding, but I think I'm good at this too. Like, how do I be more involved in shoe designs and concepts and sales? And he looked at me and he was like, why don't you just skate? Like, why do you want to do all this? And I know what he was trying to say to me. How I heard it was, all right, I'm done with DVS. I need to go find a new shoe sponsor that will allow me to be this. And then I got sponsored by this company, Etnies. And the whole pitch for me was, you're going to help us rebuild our team. And this is going to be your opportunity to help with marketing and help with shoe design.
That's really cool. Wow.
It was really cool, except I realized that I had no skills built up. I had no clue what I was doing. So I basically walked into the shoe department thinking I was Steve Jobs
Yeah.
And it was like this very like authoritarian, like we're doing this and I need, this, and this. And then like we would get samples and I'd see the samples and go, this is crap. I'm throwing, it was bad. So bad.
Steve Jobs.
It was out of the movies.
We're
Right?
like Bezos, huh?
And it was bad.
Got his turtleneck
It was
on.
bad. And so,
Or Elon Musk, the same thing.
but it happened to me again where I got a call from the brand manager and he was like, I heard what happened in the design office today.
That's awesome.
And I was like, yeah, this is ridiculous, right? And he goes, Mikey, no. Like, you need to calm down. Like, you can't do that. Like, this isn't how you handle working with people.
Yeah.
And I heard it the same way I heard the DVS president. I went, oh, they're always going to view me as a skater.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I will ever be if I'm trying to do this for someone else's company.
Yeah.
I need to start my own company.
Yeah.
Like, thank God I heard it the wrong way because it led to something good.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have, the skill, and I didn't think I had the wisdom at that point.
So
that led me to start my own company.
Was that
And I wonder,
No, that was that. It actually ended up turning into Saint Archer.
Oh, really?
And so Etnies, that happens with Etnies, and I go, I'm done with Etnies. Quit Etnies to ride for DC.
Yeah.
And then I'm in this window of like, I need to start a company. Like, I need this. And I was with Josh, who ended up becoming my partner. We were filming a skate film, and basically one thing led to another, and we just started talking about business. And that night, we kind of randomly came up with this idea that we should do a beer company.
Yeah.
And he was as crazy as I was.
You were brewing beer before, or
No,
just like,
no.
I love Saint Archer.
We had no clue. What we were talking about was starting a business or a brand inside the skate industry that had never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation was really around, why do skaters always start the same type of companies? It's always skateboard companies, clothing brands, hat companies, grip tape, watches. It's all things that have been done. And so we started talking about like what ideas could be done that hadn't. And he just randomly threw out there, he's like, what about beer?
No.
And I was like, beer? Oh, and it was so wild. I was like, yes, let's do beer. And I was already hot on this. Like, I need my own company.
Yeah.
And so that was basically the beginning of the idea. And then it took us probably, I would say 16 to 18 months until we actually were able to bring it to reality.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
that,
very cool.
We looked at the brewing company.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
yeah, it's,
But I was making beer, and Antoine too. We were making beer in the garage. I said, "Yeah, that'd be cool," and stuff like that. So
Breaking Bad style.
Beer.
well, that's the natural evolution.
Yeah.
The natural evolution is like you get into beer and then you brew it in the garage, and then you get the people around you start buying it. Then you move into the storage unit and then you start expanding.
Exactly.
But you didn't do that.
No, we didn't do that. We knew nothing about beer.
Yeah.
But we had this idea of
But you
a
knew how to
brand.
drink it, right?
You know what? We drank beer, but I think we were more obsessed with this idea of creating something that hadn't been done.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, we originally looked at doing like we were going to contract the brew, like somebody else was going to make our beer. We were just going to put our branding on it.
Yeah.
And
private labeling.
And we started going to other breweries or talking to breweries that would do this, and basically we couldn't make any money doing it.
Yeah.
And that led us to kind of get to the point of going, if we're going to do this, we should do a production brewery.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't have enough money to start it.
Exactly.
So we had to do a business plan, and then we had to go raise money.
And then what size you want to get started with?
That's
so
right.
It makes sense financially.
That's right. So we went through that whole exercise. It took us about a year. And then we raised money to do it, and then we opened doors.
It seems so fast.
It was
a year, 16 months.
It was it was fast. So my three partners, it was me, Paul Rodriguez, and Josh Landon.
P-Rod.
Yeah, all three of us are obsessive. We're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And we were all naive and thought anything was possible. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of the perfect storm of we're going to do this. And we didn't. Speed wise, we didn't know any better. We just were so used to it's full throttle.
Yeah.
You know.
And did you guys look at your audiences that were, because when I was skateboarding, I feel like everybody was below 21 and would buy alcohol with somebody else's ID and stuff like that. Did you guys look at your audiences that were following you as well and be like, oh, we can just market it to our own audiences and a large percentage of your audience was over 21?
Yeah, at that point, let's see, when I started it, I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
So was Paul. And so we had this idea that probably a good percentage of our following was old enough to drink.
Yeah.
But we weren't looking at it through the lens of we're going to sell our beer to our audience. We were more looking at what other brands were doing using our likeness to then apply that to an audience that didn't know who we were. And that was more the outlook.
Gotcha.
You know, we were like, if Monster can do this, if Red Bull can do this, why can't we do it? And that was the approach.
That makes sense.
Did you guys with Saint Archer, did you sponsor any skaters?
We didn't sponsor skaters. What we did was we needed money. We didn't have enough money to do it. So we pitched all of our friends. Yeah. And, you know, the majority of my friends were pro skaters. Same with Paul. My other partner was in the surf industry. So he was pitching surfers. And then it didn't take long for snowboarders to hear about it. And so when we raised all the money, we're looking at like, you know, what we had available. And I remember I think we had like $100,000 set for like our marketing budget, which in today's world is nothing. Yeah. But back then it was like an astronomical amount of money. And I can't remember who said it, but somebody just threw it out there. They were, you know, said something around the lines of, what if we don't spend money on marketing and we just use everybody's following on Instagram? And this was 2011, so there's no influencer marketing.
Yeah, the beginning, you guys were the original influencers.
It was early, not even by design. We stepped into this. So, you know, basically, Josh tallied everybody's followers up from our investors, and it was like 5 million followers.
Oh, yeah. What platforms were you guys?
It was just it was Instagram was the one. Instagram was the one.
Yeah, because that's right when Instagram was coming out.
Yeah. So he was basically, we're going to make videos, you know, 2, 3, 4 minute mini documentaries, and everybody's going to post them on Instagram. Let's do it. And we started doing it, and the thing just went nuts.
That's awesome.
Went nuts.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It was cool.
And then how many years did you guys run it before selling it? And
it basically totaled about 3.5 years.
That's
yeah, it was fast. We when we launched it was very apparent that we had something special. Like we knew this was like a unicorn, scenario.
Yeah.
And we had so much demand, and it was just raise capital to build infrastructure to be able to catch demand. And it was like we would do this. And so, we had so much demand that we thought we had a desirable company for some of the bigger breweries like Molson or Budweiser, because they were trying to buy the cool craft beers because they were trying to build their own brands, and they just were unsuccessful.
That's right.
And at that time, we had national brand awareness, but we couldn't fill the demand in California.
Yeah.
So we had this idea that this was a dream scenario because somebody like Budweiser or Molson, who has distribution unlock, can buy a brand that has national exposure that's only in California, and they'll be the runway to grow it, and that's how they'll make their money. And it ended up being right. We had all these brands fighting over us, and it was crazy.
Most of them would go on the angle of the microbrewery, and they had like some special kind of but that's not the what you did here. You just basically you really focus on the brand, the community.
So that's what Instagram was the gasoline that exposed what we had, and we didn't even realize it was something special. So every brand was doing exactly that. It was specialty beers. It was unique hops and fruits and very very heavy IPAs, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, we want beers that you can drink. And so we just created what we thought somebody could bring, a 6-pack of and actually drink it. And that is what ended up changing everything, because we were creating beer that you could drink at scale in the craft beer industry, not
drink at scale.
That's great. Wow, that's genius. If we ever start a beer company, we're never making an IPA.
But I mean, think
Saint
about
Archer.
Yeah.
Drink and
right. Think about it. I have a product. I sell you one IPA, you have one drink. You're done. With ours, you have 3. That's good. That's
kind of like a Guinness. You have a Guinness. You say, okay, well, 1, 2, 3 Guinness, you're done. But.
So it ended up becoming everybody started calling it sessionable beers.
Okay.
And we were early on that one.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, you can have 3 and you're still not skating under the influence. You can still
SUI.
Yeah, that did not come from me. That did not come from me.
That's why we made Saint Archer.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so then you ended up selling that to Miller's Coors. So that was a successful exit. But was that the intention at the beginning, to have that kind of exit, or you were thinking of, was that cash flowing? Was it cash flowing?
No.
Really.
Okay, so the plan was to sell. The plan just wasn't that we were going to sell that fast.
Okay, yeah.
And what we realized when we had to raise money, well, take a step back. Before we had to raise money, we had this dream that we would own this brand forever.
Yeah.
Right? We just didn't know what that meant, how to achieve it. And we also didn't know that when you go out to raise money, the first question an investor's going to ask is, how do I get paid?
Yeah.
And you got to be pretty, not only clear, but convincing that you actually have the pathway to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
We were not going to do that from a cash flow business. Our model was, there's a moment in craft beer where you're seeing, I always say kids, but it's young adults starting to bring craft beer to parties. That it was starting to bleed over to the mainstream.
Yeah.
And there were also the big boys that were buying. And so we thought we had a window, and because that window was potentially small, our model was step on the gas.
Mm-hmm.
It was step on the gas, grow and sell.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how investors were going to make money.
Okay.
We just weren't expecting, from us opening doors the next day to have the demand we had.
Wow.
We thought it was going to be more like a traditional business, 5 years of trying to tell people who we are. And
Putting the market product on the shelf.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram was huge for
Yeah,
us.
so then did you guys sell through, could people go and buy? Because then I know you run into probably all the licensing and shipping issues and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Were people buying it right from your website, or California only,
We
right?
couldn't sell it direct.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was something. Direct to consumer
business to start.
It's so brutal.
That
It's
can
so
make it.
brutal.
Well, there's a brewery now where people can go and actually get drinks there or no.
With Saint Archer?
Yeah.
There was. Molson Coors canned it about 8 months ago.
That's what I thought.
wow.
Because was it in LA or San Diego?
The main brewery that we started was in San Diego. And then they had, I think, 2 other tasting rooms that they did out there.
Yeah, that's.
And then they had a tasting room at
That's what I was
at
thinking,
Angel
yeah.
Stadium, and they just unfortunately, what the big Budweiser, Molson Coors, what they do really well is they do things at scale, where their distribution is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They don't understand brand. That's the part that they're challenged by.
Yeah.
So we gave them something that was very unique, and I just don't think they knew what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like social media, for example, social media was so much a part of what we were doing.
Yeah.
And when they bought the brand, they basically looked at social media, this is a waste of time, didn't do anything on it.
Yeah.
So you go from your main drivers of brand awareness, and then they just canned it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Yeah.
It was hard. It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got the money.
What's that?
You got the money.
Well, you get,
You feel bad still?
yeah,
It was your baby.
you do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Still felt like yours.
Yes. Yeah. Well, look,
Yeah.
you have this idea that you're going to sell it to a company like that, and then you're going to
take
see
care of
them take it to a map. Yeah, that you could never take it to.
Yeah.
Well, often
Yeah.
what they do, I mean, not necessarily Molson Coors, but other types of acquisition, they keep the executive team in place or
Right.
founders in place to kind of teach them
To keep
how
it
to
going.
keep
Yeah.
it
So was it a
going.
full buyout?
Mhm.
Wow.
It was a full buyout, but it was staged. But it was a full buyout.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then, so what was the next step after that? So now you're working on Saint Archer and all of that. And I know somewhere along the way you're gonna go to Commune Capital and all that.
Okay, so
what happens there?
we sell,
Yeah.
and then everybody stays with Saint Archer for maybe a year or so. And during that year was basically as my career was officially winding down.
Mm-hmm.
And so my career ends, we all leave Saint Archer, and my partner, Josh, in Saint Archer wanted to stay in the beverage space.
Mhm.
So he went out and created his next brand in beverage. He still does. It's really successful, a seltzer brand.
Mhm.
And then he has a ready to drink, and now he's got, beards. So there's a lot of different verticals to it.
Yeah.
Which brand is that?
The seltzer is called Ashland.
Oh yeah.
The ready to drink is called Villager.
Yeah, I've had all those.
Yeah, yeah. And for me personally, I wanted to do something different.
Okay.
And I think it was around this idea that I think there's twofold. One was Saint Archer. We found a model that worked, which was take the way we build brands and apply it to an industry that was behind the times from a marketing standpoint.
Okay.
And I was concerned, at least for me, that I was going to run into the risk of doing something too similar in an industry that we had already tapped.
Yeah.
And, what was good is Josh proved that to not be true, but I was concerned about it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to find an industry that was right for the, right to add this to where it would be disruptive.
Yeah.
And then the second part is being the obsessive part of me. I can't just turn the obsessive on. That's the thing I've never been able to figure out.
Yeah.
If you could tell me, like, Mikey, get into, I don't know, what's a random industry that's boom. If you just said, Mikey, turn on pickleball, I turned it on. Oh, that'd be phenomenal. Can't. I have to have something grab me.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened that a conversation like with Saint Archer led to the idea of starting a private equity firm, grabbed my attention, then the obsession, then the industry was beyond what the beer industry was from a marketing standpoint. It was stale.
Yeah.
And then that was this is it.
So what year is it that you officially launched your first fund with Commune?
We officially launched our first fund in 2018, and that probably took a year and a half, almost 2 years
for the raise.
No, of basically the idea and then the business. For me, I know it now. It, no matter what, takes me 12 months from idea to launch at a minimum. I can't do it faster than that.
Okay.
And so that one took a little bit longer than 12 months.
Gotcha. And you guys are on fund number 5.
We're on fund 5 now.
Yeah. That just launched?
Just launched, yeah. It just launched about 3 weeks ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's been, look, the good thing about being obsessive, it's all you want to do.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That brings some good stuff.
Yeah, you found a much more lucrative obsession now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So what do you do as 12 months wrap up? And this is a significant amount of time for us anyway. What do you do during 12 months to get prepared to get prepared and ready for the launch?
Forming your thesis.
So, it's such a good question. So, my process, at least, I come up with the idea, and then I need to test the idea. Before testing it to market, there's, I want to think of all the holes. I start talking to people about it. I'm trying to break the idea down.
Yeah.
Once I feel like I actually have something, then I need to figure out how to actually bring the idea to reality. That is, by far the hardest part.
Yeah.
And at that time, I came up with the idea of what I wanted the brand and the mission to be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about fund management. I knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
And so I started working on the business plan, and I had a whole of what I needed for this side of it. And so it took me time just talking to people, educating myself to know what to do. And then once I figured out what the business plan was, then we had to actually go do it.
Yeah.
And, and in real estate, it's not just real estate, it's like more private equity as a whole. You have this dilemma of, do you find the deal and then raise capital, or do you raise capital, then find the deal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing to start balance. In. And so basically we picked, let's find the deal.
Yeah.
And then the deal took time to find.
Yeah.
So it just took time.
Was your first fund a real estate fund, or was it, and so because you said something very interesting, like what we learned with Archer was that we take all of our audiences and we apply it to an old model, right? Was that real estate funds, or were you actually going to go and do that for different companies and raise money to help go?
Really good. That's a really good question. Like beer, we didn't change the way beer was made.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We changed the way beer was marketed. Same thing for real estate. We didn't change the way you invest. I wanted to change the way that really the younger generation viewed real estate investing.
Got it.
And so, if you look at the typical fund structure, there was nothing unique about our fund structure. I think we had a really good model in which we were going out to find good opportunity. Maybe that was a little bit unique, but we weren't building a new platform and a new experience on how you invest, and we weren't building other people's investments.
Got it.
It was more, here's our fund, and then how do we separate ourselves from the rest? And marketing was, I think, by and large, the way we did that.
Awesome.
So for that first fund, were a lot of your investors from your guys' existing network? Or what did you guys do to raise capital?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first fund we did was a multifamily fund. And then the first project was a project in Southern California. It was if I remember right, we bought it for about a little over $7 million. I think the total cost was 10. So at that point, I think we needed $3 million to start. And basically I was like, we just came off an exit. Like, I have a bunch of investors that I could tap into that we just, paid a huge return to.
Yeah.
Not as easy as I thought. Raising capital was, so with Saint Archer, we didn't have a tight timeline to raise. With real estate, you do.
Yeah.
You have to put a project under contract. At that time, it was we had like 45 days.
Yeah.
So we, 45 days to do all the legal and to raise all the capital.
Yeah.
And I remember being worried about that, but what I was surprised with was, in my perspective, real estate is so much safer than 3 kids who know nothing about beer that are going to start a brewery, right? All the odds in the world that we're losing your money, not a lot of chance of that, right? And so I was like, this is going to be a piece of cake to raise capital for. I was blown away with how difficult it was.
Oh, yeah.
When you're doing a startup, you can sell a dream that you're going to 40x. I mean, it's not, big multiples.
Yeah, but when it comes to a fund,
just with real estate, because it's a different risk, it's a risk-adjusted return.
Yeah.
And a lot of my relationships were younger, and they had just, with Saint Archer, 12x'd their investment. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you're going to give me a 15% IRR? Yeah. I want the 12x. Yeah. It was hard. Yeah. It was hard in the beginning.
Yeah. Wow. So then where did you find success with raising capital for the first fund?
So there were investors that came from Saint Archer, and I just went on a blitz. I went through this because skateboarding ended. Mm-hmm. There was a part where I had to almost like find myself again. Like there's an identity part that you lose with pro sports. Why you see so many pro athletes.
I experienced the same thing.
It's brutal.
When I quit volleyball, I was like, well, who am I? What do I do now?
Yeah.
I think it's why you see so many pro athletes get old and they're still living in the years that they were. It's a difficult thing. Mm-hmm. I was working through that kind of emotional challenge. When I landed on it, this is what I'm going to build. I then had to basically tell everyone what I was doing because I was viewed as the pro skateboarder.
Yeah.
The pro skateboarder is not going to do any good for me with what I'm doing. So I started going to basically every event I could go to. And I had to learn again how to network and how to introduce myself to people and not be the guy that everybody knew in every, networking setting. I had to learn how to walk up to somebody and go, hey, how are you? What's your name? And I had 20 years. I was introduced for myself by someone.
Yeah,
that's
true.
But your method, I would say, is kind of like applying new marketing and branding to an old investment, right? So you did that with beer. What I'm missing is kind of like what is the new marketing? What is the new branding about this fund?
Really, really good question. So, and it's morphed a little bit, but in the beginning, if you went to anybody's website, the website was, for some other people's real estate funds or firms, it looked like an outdated business card. Mm-hmm. It looked terrible. Then, if one of them did happen to have social media, which 99% of them didn't, it was horrible as well. Yeah. And so our original idea was we're going to build our website to look like a magazine. Mm-hmm. We go, I want to apply things that are hitting in youth culture on real estate investing. Very edgy, unique photos. How we were articulating what we were doing, it wasn't based on return. It was around this idea of creating the new American dream and this idea that the youth can be interested and think investing's cool and actually want to tell their friends that they're paying themselves first and they have assets and ultimately trying to make real estate cool is what we're attempting to do. And then when we went on to social media, we went heavy on every platform. And then when TikTok opened up, that became another one. And we were trying to package content, short form, and trying to educate people on how investing worked in a way that they would actually consume it.
But were you focused on accredited investor at that point, or were you?
Okay, so here's the other part. We could only have accredited investors.
Were you doing
there's an offering.
506C?
Yeah. So at that time, we could only market to accredited investors. So if you looked at other people's way of doing it, they only spoke to accredited investors. We didn't. We ultimately wanted to create a path, even if it had to be through education, where we could resonate with somebody who just started getting a job and didn't even have enough money to even potentially save, all the way to a path of somebody who's accredited who could invest with us. And so what happened is our audience just started building, and it became more of a place to learn about investing than just a real estate fund.
Okay.
But we had a real estate offering to participate with. And my idea was, I want to build a brand that has the ability to offer multiple different verticals, not just in real estate. Real estate is just the one that we are launching first.
Yeah, I mean, your goal is financial freedom, I think, and something like that, and educating the next generation on, financial literacy and investing, all that. And then, real estate is just happens to be the best investment vehicle for doing that.
Right.
Okay. So, and the reason why I'm asking this is because we had like similar challenges also, where we have with Martel Invest, we were doing like a single family rental fund portfolio that is on the blockchain.
You guys know everything I'm talking about.
The challenge is that we're dealing with accredited investors, right? And I see. So this is what I'm saying is that it's a little bit different right now. Is that you're communicating with everybody and saying, okay, well, you can't invest right now, but this is how you invest. This is what you need to do. This is you can invest with us, but you can go there. Right?
I'm gonna give you everything I'm doing.
Okay, good.
So
are we recording?
That's the first. That's the first part, right? I like the idea of building a wide audience, which gives you the ability to plug in verticals. But even creating wide, you're still going to have a percentage in there that are accredited. So talking about something macro and then using your target marketing or even your organic sales side to speak just to accredited. So that's one part of it. Two, I still do the old school stuff. I'm still at dinners. I try to be everywhere and I try to have everyone know what I do. So using social media, even from a personal brand side, we invest in single family residence. We invest in this area. This is what we do so that when somebody is having a conversation and maybe somebody goes, I want to get into flipping. I have no clue what to do. I actually don't even know if I want to do the work. Then they go, I know who to hit up, right? So you want to create all these different avenues or funnels into what you're doing. And then the paid advertising stuff too. Paid advertising, you get more focused on who your exact avatar is.
So it's hard to target, or impossible to target accredited investor.
It's easier than you think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We are recording. Do tell.
So what platforms are you guys advertising on? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube?
We primarily advertise paid advertising on Facebook, Instagram.
Gotcha.
Those are the ones we primarily do.
And then how are you targeting it down to hit up those accredited investors?
We bring on a firm that does all of that.
Oh, you do?
Okay.
We'll have to get their
if you guys want me to do
that,
I mean, we are doing some things right, because I think we're trying to be kind of like the funnel of single family rental investing, and then we have lots of conversation with different individuals and say, okay, well, now I want to be more hands-on, or I have a lot of money, I just want to go turnkey, I want to buy 10 properties right now. Well, you have Martel turnkey, or you have FlipSystem, or I'm an accredited investor, I want to do that, and you can go to Martel Invest. So we are trying to be kind of like that hub, and then we direct them to the different verticals. So.
Yeah, very similar. Ours was like a single family home investment fund with as little as $50. So anybody with $50 could come and invest. We're applying for the Reg A right now. And I'm just like, keep posting organically, like both of us.
Right.
But it's just like, getting there, it's just like very similar to you. Like, just like if you could just open like what Grant Cardone did, just be able to open it up to everybody, you know, for like, $500, $100, but then having your brand and marketing behind it, making it fun and cool and interactive.
Right. So the Reg A plus, the Regulation A plus is the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're about to start the process of, don't know how many rounds it's going to be, but we're going to start going through that process now.
Okay, beautiful.
Is that going to be Fund 6?
Fund 6 is going to be
there. We go.
Correct. So we're hoping that it's launched this year.
God, that's going to be rocket.
Yeah, Reg A is fun.
Crazy. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. But I've wanted a Reg A since 2017. The second I saw this thing, I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a monster. I mean, we go from I don't know. We have 400 investors right now.
Yeah.
I was talking to Ryan, who works with Grant today, and he was like, "We have 12,000 investors. We need 120,000." I'm like, "Dang! I'm out here trying to get to 1,000." But you expand smaller investors, so the management of it is, I think, going to be heavy, but I think it's rad. I think it's really rad.
Yeah, because it completes your mission.
That's right. Yeah. You nailed it. That's exactly right.
Well, it is the same for us too. I mean, we're trying to solve problems. That's why we're doing this. I mean, we started with Martel Turnkey, and then we talked to investors and say, I don't have $30,000 to invest in turnkey rent and stuff like that. I want to do my own birth. Okay.
Right.
And then we kind of like started with the Martel investors. Well, then you can invest $50, and then get the same advantages that you would
of real estate,
investing in real estate. And now we're doing the FlipSystem and all that. So,
I love that.
Just solving problems, listening to your investors and solving their problems.
That's right.
Do you ever think about like taking all because now, you have that first company, the brewery, the beer company, now you have this. Have you thought about then doing more like private equity in terms of bringing on finding the 27-year-old Mikey that has XYZ startup, plugging in, playing, and having a whole slew of companies?
Yes. Just not right now.
Yeah.
So what I didn't, I decided to get involved just in our community. I ended up running.
I saw that.
So I'm just now getting to the point where I have the business and that back to a system.
Yeah.
What, you guys kind of touched on it. And I think this is the hardest part for probably entrepreneurs is we definitely think anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a eye for seeing opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But that could also be tough because you get stuck in this, I'll do all these things.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do well, what we are trying to do well with Commune is build our fund correctly first.
Yeah.
And have that thing to the point where it's on cruise control. Then introduce the next vertical.
Yeah.
And our real estate in the last 2 years has finally got to that point where like, here we go.
Yeah.
So if I were to guess, I think we've got another couple years until that's where I want it to be, until we start talking about something else. But if we did like Commune Venture or something like that,
exactly,
that'd be awesome.
I wouldn't build it. I would probably look for a partner that we would bring in and have them be the face or the youth of what's next.
That's
But like and then why did you land on real estate too? Because it's not like you said, I was a big real estate investor. Skateboarding.
Okay, so this,
And then did you bring a real estate guy in?
Yes, really good question. Good question. So I was investing in storage.
Okay.
Storage was like the first commercial real estate I was investing in. And when I was originally pitched on storage, I didn't even know the questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
It was, what should I be asking?
Yeah.
But once I started getting the checks, the distributions, they're paid out quarterly. There was something about that where I was like, this check's coming every quarter. Yeah. And I'm not saying real estate can go wrong and that check cannot come.
Yeah.
But I found that I had a different type of confidence in the future distributions with real estate than maybe I had in other investments.
Yeah.
And I just found myself moving more of my portfolio or the allocation going heavier into that and not as much into, let's say, the market or startups.
Yeah.
Then when I had basically the idea of Commune, I was really thinking about skaters at that point. I was really trying to crack this code for my community, which was, how do I figure out a solution so that these skaters don't go broke and end up begging for a job in the warehouse at the sponsor they once had? And it's not to diss anyone in the warehouse. It just seemed like they had the potential to go up here, and they weren't maximizing it and had to start kind of more at the beginning stage again. And so when I was looking at investments, I wanted something that I felt confident in being there when their career ended. And the challenge you have with skaters, and then it ended up crossing over into all these different sports. And now why we have a lot of our investors being athletes is, one, athletes are young. And so when you're young, you're typically looking for growth, right? You're not usually looking for cash flow yet. You want to grow your wealth, and you start moving over to hybrid, then you start going into cash flow as the typical trend. So I had to figure out how to grow wealth, but also athletes are relying on sponsors. That's their income. And when their income goes away, the last thing that's ever going to change, as we know, is lifestyle. So as you're trying to figure out what you're going to do next, you're burning cash. So I was trying to figure out what the wealth build and cash flow aspect could be. And then on top of that, skaters and most athletes have a very high risk tolerance. Like, they'll swing for the fences. And real estate to me seemed like that perfect one, which could give cash flow, could give appreciation, and could be there for them when their career ended. So that's what I ran with.
Yeah,
got it.
That's awesome. I interviewed a few professional players like football, soccer, what else? Baseball and stuff like that. And just, I mean, that's the thing is that they start and they know, like, from the beginning that the end is near already. Like, when you start your career professionally, you know the end is near. So you start, the smart one, start preparing for the end.
Right.
Like, right up front, say, okay, I'm doing way more money than I should be making right now. I'm going to put a lot of it away, and I'm going to start planning for something else.
Right.
And most of them, they invest at least a portion of it in real estate.
Right.
So unless they have some kind of other business idea. So I think, your skateboarding and you being a professional skateboarder and all of that, and then kind of like probably attracted other,
I think it helped me, it helped resonate because I speak the language in some regard. And then what I learned is, outside of skateboarding, when you start getting like football or basketball, they don't trust people on the outside. It takes them a lot of time to trust somebody who isn't like them in the sense of an athlete. Yeah. And I found that I think I was able to bridge that gap faster than if I was just a random dude who invested in real estate and maybe played sports in high school. Yeah. And I think that saved a lot of time.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because I think you're looking at.
But then the challenge is this one. Yeah. You're a skater. I mean, what does a skater know about real estate? So it didn't all come with. There was challenges.
You get that objection a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I still get it. Yeah. I'll still get it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you'll be managing a $4 billion fund. And you'll still get it. Like, it's part of the game.
Especially the institutional side.
Yeah.
Did you start off with self-storage then? And now what do you guys do? Self-storage and multifamily?
So so me personally as an investor, it was storage, and then on the equity side, and then I was participating in a debt fund as well for commercial real estate. No multifamily. When remember I was telling you I didn't know how fund management worked? I brought it to the storage guys I was investing with. Brought on my business plan, and I was like, guys, how do I do this part? Who are the people that I need to bring on? Not even thinking like maybe they could be my partners. I was just like, can you educate me?
What you ended up doing for that.
Yeah. So I was expecting an education moment, and they asked if they could keep my business plan and we'll talk next week, something like that. And I was talking to one of them. This was a group of guys. And then the next week I come into a meeting and it's all three of them. And they began to pitch me on the idea of us starting a fund together. And so how it worked, they had one management company. You guys are going to know this, but maybe for the audience. When you create a fund, you don't own the fund. The investors own the fund. So you create the management company that manages the fund, and then you get some type of correct. Yeah. And so they owned a management company that was managing the storage portfolio that I was investing in as a passive investor. And then the same management company managed the debt fund. Yeah. Right. So then we created a new management company together, which was Commune Capital. And then we created a new fund, which is multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I loved storage as an investment, there was something about multifamily that I felt I was more drawn to with the creative side of things. Storage is phenomenal investment. It's a bunch of garages, right?
Yeah.
Where multifamily, you're talking, even with single family, even more so, you're talking about somebody's home.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have the opportunity to create an experience and a vibe and something special.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was really drawn to multifamily because of that. So then we started our multifamily fund, and we use a lot of the tactics we used with Saint Archer.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't doing that on the storage or lending portfolio. Their growth came from just great performance, phenomenal track record, a lot of trust from investors, and then investors would tell other investors the more traditional way. Well, multifamily, all of a sudden, we started getting brokers calling us who had no relationship with us, trying to give us off-market deals as if we've been working with them for a decade.
Yeah.
We had investors coming. We had lent all this energy coming towards this fund, and we were growing. And they looked around and went, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started having the conversation of what it would look like to merge the companies together, which really meant merging the management companies.
Oh, wow.
And so we started having that conversation. Took us another year. We ended up merging the management companies together. Then the storage portfolio and the debt portfolio that I had been investing in passively forever then took under the Commune umbrella.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And then from there, the company, we started, at least on my end, once we merged, raising capital for all three, looking for deal flow for all three. And then we spun up a new debt fund, and then we spun up a new multifamily fund. And then we're going to spin up the Reg A will be the next one.
Wow.
That's awesome. And that Reg A is going to focus in real estate too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy how it works.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they were
works.
actually merged the management company. I mean, I'm a very generous person, but I was just like, I don't know if I spent a lot of time, building that management company.
Mikey had something that they wanted.
Depends how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you let's say we're the management companies, right? And I have something that you don't have, and you have something that I don't have.
Yeah.
Potentially, looking at the size of them and what the dilution would be to come together, you're basically making the argument of, can I grow this thing to a point where the return that I'm going to make is more than if I would ever do this by myself, right?
True,
Would I rather own 100% of something small or 10% of something massive?
Yeah.
And at least for myself and the partners, we all landed on, let's take this thing to the moon. And I'm okay if I don't own 50%.
So obviously you had something great going on.
We had something,
Commune Capital.
we had something, where it really started getting special is when there was a point where about 50% of our capital stack started coming from social.
Wow.
And then it was like, we looked at each other and went, holy smokes.
Well, it was insane too. Like even like Martel Turnkey too. Like, we couldn't believe that we were selling single family rentals on Instagram.
Right.
It was like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
It was like, this is impossible.
I still sold some last week.
Yeah, it's just insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's just like, but yeah, so I could see that. I mean, this is an unbelievable value. And if these guys were not even looking at social media, or they were kind of you open up a brand new doors of millions of people that say, oh yeah, I could invest in that. And then with the Reg A,
that's right. Yeah. And for me, I will never build something by myself. Mm-hmm. I know my skills. I know my weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And one thing I have to have always is as an operator, I'm not an organized, keep everything moving efficiently.
Yeah.
This is where we're headed. I'm going to push us really hard to get there. And if somebody's not controlling the guardrails, this thing's going to go off course. Right?
Someone's got to be the rudder.
Yeah. And I have that in my partners, and we have something very interesting where they have been doing this so long that you have a gap of age and of wisdom. And what we found is I'm going to go faster than they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And they're going to go slower than I want to go. Yeah. And then we end up meeting in this middle ground that is, I think, actually really good for both of us, where I'm not missing, detail or putting ourselves in risk because I'm going too fast. And we're actually now growing at a rate by not going too slow. And we found it to be really beneficial.
Oh, yeah. So you get synergy and balance.
Yeah. I was talking to a really successful fund manager not too long ago. They're at almost 30 billion AUM.
Wow.
And they got very big, very fast by their strategic partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we all believe too, is the power of strategic partnerships, of who's going to balance out your weakness and also add that value for you to get from fund 1 to fund 5, where you guys are at now.
Right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And where are you guys doing most of these deals in right now?
Location wise?
Yeah.
So our storage model is a little bit niche, so it makes it difficult to hone in on one area.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we buy distressed big box retail. So we look for Kmart's or Walmart's or Bed Bath & Beyond's that go vacant, and then we want to repurpose them into storage. It's been a phenomenal investment for us. It's difficult to do though. As you guys can imagine, cities are not that stoked on storage. Typically, they want to put storage on the outskirts.
Yeah.
And our model, that's not the case. So that one, we're kind of all over the place. Multifamily, on the other hand, we have an ability to be more targeted because multifamily in so many areas is such a need.
Mm-hmm.
And so our newest fund actually is hyper-focused on California, which makes no sense for a lot of investors.
Yeah.
A lot of investors stay away from California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're
especially rentals. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's I get it, but at least our philosophy is we like building where it's difficult to, because 1, it keeps competition out, and 2, if it's more difficult to build, in theory, you have the ability to make a higher return. And California is what we know. We've been investing there for a long time, so we kind of focus on California.
Wow.
To me, man, that's not my
really
biggest problem with
What's your biggest problem?
My
The
biggest
political
problem,
aspect and regulation?
Yes. That's
Yeah,
right,
so-
and then the inability to increase the rents to match the.
But if you guys are
Correct. But
building
when you build, okay, so you're right. If you're buying stabilized assets or even value add assets, that's difficult. What we do is look for something that we can repurpose or redevelop. So we're in a lot of cases scraping and then building. So the majority of our value add comes from the build, and then wherever market rents are, that's where our rents are established, and then future growth is capped in some sense. But what we found is, even by going through that whole process of the build in an area that is difficult to build, and why we have issues in California, like we are extremely undersupplied. We are so far undersupplied. I'm not sure where we're going to hit equilibrium in my lifetime.
Yeah,
Is that bad?
they keep building office towers, and it's just like, where are people coming from? Where are they going to live? They're going to commute 3 hours away? I don't think so.
So with that model, we get the biggest pop from the build.
Yeah.
And then if the rent growth, even if it's just naturally, we hit the numbers that we're attempting to hit.
Wow,
that's great. The exit is basically a cash flow, is a refi, or is it, you're not reselling at the end?
Good question. So let me see how I can explain this. The very first thing we ask ourselves when we look at a deal is, do we want to own this thing for 10 years? Does this product have demand for 10 years? And then we basically underwrite it in an all cash basis, unlevered. And if we think there's going to be demand in 10 years, we're going to hit the rents we're going to hit, and the return is in our threshold, we're pretty comfortable with building. It doesn't mean we won't sell it earlier. Well, like when you're going through the value add kind of opportunity, your highest IRR, if you're at least showing IRR, is going to be on a shorter timeline, right? So if you're like, it takes you 2 years to build, you're stabilized in year 3, somewhere around year 4 or 5 is going to be a high IRR. And then the longer you hold it, you're actually going to start seeing the IRR drop. What we kind of look at is, we're holding this thing for 10, but if we get an offer along the way for something that we can't say no to, we're going to sell it. That happened to us twice last year on 2 apartments. No desire to sell. The numbers made no sense for us to hold. And so we sold them.
Yeah, same thing for us too. We had some apartment buildings too that that you really want it, obviously.
Right. That's
every building we bought, we're like, never gonna sell this shit. 3 years later.
But it's interesting when you think of it through the lens of demand. Right? If you're like, let's take a step back. In real estate, we get so caught up on cap rates. And understandably right now, I understand why there's a big conversation around interest rates, but we're focused on cap rates and valuations. in theory, if there's product for, let's say, if there's demand for your product 10 years from now, it doesn't really matter what interest rates do or cap rates do in the interim if there's nothing that's forcing you to sell. If there's nothing forcing you to sell,
but if you're holding these properties unlevered, or you have
we underwrite them unlevered, and then we start looking at what it does to the numbers to add leverage to it. Why we do it that way is you can financially engineer a deal on paper to make it look really good,
everything
or
always
really
looks
bad
great on a spreadsheet.
You can sell anything, or you can put yourself in a position of never acting by doing that. So we tend to look at it unlevered as just a view of, is this a good deal? Then we start adding debt to it.
And when you add leverage later on, when you do your refi, you do it at full loan to value?
On the refi?
Yeah.
Correct. Well, what do you mean by full loan to value?
So
the maximum of what the bank will give us, or the lender will give us loan to value?
Yeah, or you're looking at cash flow and saying kind of like, I'm going to do 40% loan to value, and then so that it cash flows at a good rate.
It's a good question, and it depends.
Okay.
I would say the most recent example, we refied a property about 2 years ago, and what the lender offered was, like, let's call it 68% LTV, and that was like the ceiling. We actually had an opportunity where we could de-risk it or have less leverage, and it qualified for a better interest rate. And so we actually decided to put money into the deal to refi instead of pull it out, which is not normal. But by doing so, we were able to lock in a 2.6% interest rate for 10 years, which, I mean, it's unheard of. And so we ended up deciding to do that. And I remember it was, at least for me, an uncomfortable conversation when we did our investor update say that we actually put money into the deal as opposed to pulling it out, because that's typically what you're targeting. Is
you did a capital call, or you just like...
No, we had cash in the fund. And I remember going, gosh, this is going to be a hard pitch. And then we did it. And then a year later, interest rates start rising like they did. And we now had a very attractive, assumable loan. And so there was somebody who had an exchange, and they were looking out going, that 2.6 looks really nice. And what the lender basically said, they thought they can get this price for us and end up trading for an extra $1 million because of the loan. And then you tell the investors, you're just like, thank you so much for putting it through this. So sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. I would say we take a little bit more of a conservative outlook, where just because you qualify for the loan doesn't mean you should always take it. So, for example, on our storage portfolio, we have about a 50% debt ratio for maybe globally. We could go higher than that.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Ask about, where can people find you online?
Any platform. Mikey Taylor. I come up at the top right now.
That's what you do. So, I mean, if you can't find him,
Mikey Taylor on all the platforms. My company is Commune Capital. Our website is communecapital.com, and we are Commune Capital on all the platforms as well.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Great conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you, Josh, Antoine. And see you next week.